4 belly fat blasting foods. Hey, Sophie here. So today I am going to be showing you 4 belly fat blasting swap outs that I am going to encourage you to make if you're a woman over the age of 45 and you are struggling with belly fat, also known, well, it's visceral fat actually, also known as belly fat. It's the fat that accumulates in your midsection. We start seeing it more and more after menopause. Our estrogen drops, we start gaining weight in this midsection here. It becomes much harder. So many women who come to work with me, that is one of their biggest struggles. I help women who are over the age of 45 for this reason, because they just feel so frustrated with not being able to get rid of the belly fat permanently. They can lose a little bit of weight on the scale, obviously, with any diet you do, but then it all comes back. Belly fat doesn't go. And they also want to, post-menopausal women, it's like, I want to also be healthy and lower my risk of dementia and heart disease and breast cancer and all those other diseases that we face and become very real around us. And that's what I do. And if you want to find out more about my holistic approach, then you can watch my masterclass. It's a free training underneath this video, and I'll link to that. But there are 4 swap outs that you can start thinking about making right away. So number 1 swap out is to swap out foods that are high in saturated fat for foods that are have low to minimal saturated fat in them. And this is really important. It's massively misunderstood. Saturated fat, I'm just going to make it really simple for you. And saturated fat is the sort of fat that is hard at room temperature. So when we look at fats, there are some healthy fats, and we absolutely need whole healthy fats in our diet. And there are fats that are not going to do you any favor, any part of your brain, any system of your body. And those are primarily fats that go solid at room temperature. So saturated fat is found primarily in meat, in all animal products, not just red meat. It's also very much found in white meat as well, more and more so because of the way white meat is engineered and produced now. And in fish as well, sort of certain fish like salmon, farm-raised salmon can have a lot of saturated fat in it. So even some of the foods that you might think or are being told are part of a healthy Mediterranean diet, such as salmon and chicken and things like this, can be quite high in saturated fat. Dairy is obviously very high in saturated fat. So saturated fat, particularly when it comes from meat, particularly meat and butter. There's a little bit of a difference when it comes to dairy from fermented dairy like yogurt and cheese. But I'm going to really stick with fermented, the swap out that I'm going to advocate that you make from meat and from butter. And that is any kind of meat. It is red meat and white meat. Okay, so if you were to swap out something like a high protein tofu, or even if for those of you who are like, oh, I can't eat tofu, it's okay, I've got you. Tofu is super, super healthy. I have to link every single video I do. I have to do a little link underneath to the freak out of like, oh my gosh, but tofu, I've had breast cancer, or, and actually, the opposite is true. If you are a breast cancer survivor, then the studies that we now have, credible evidence-based studies to show that eating organic tofu and soy products can actually play a huge part in prevention of recurrence of breast cancer and even preventing getting breast cancer in the first place. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I really want to set the record straight. So not only do you have the benefit of swapping out a food like a meat that's very high in saturated fat that drives your LDL cholesterol up, that is the bad cholesterol, and it plays a huge part in visceral fat, in belly fat. My recommendation is to make the swap out and make it as soon as possible. So simple swap would be a high protein, it could be a regular tofu, but I like an organic high protein tofu. It's so versatile. You can use, I show my clients, we use it in so many different ways. So even if you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with that big white tasteless block? Well, you're going to learn to season with it, cook it, air fry it, cube it, saute it, crumble it. It is one of the most versatile foods. Once you get a handle on it, there will be no looking back. It also has other compounds in it, which can also help minimize menopausal symptoms such as hot flashes and many other health benefits too. And I just wanted to throw this other food in there. We're seeing this more and more. It's called a pumfu, and it's like a tofu, but it's made out of pumpkin seeds, and it has the same sort of texture. It's really delicious when you cube it, air fry it, pop it in the oven. And there are other sort of, if you like, meat substitutes. There's also seitan, there's tempeh, which is very, very healthy as well. All these foods are very high in protein, and that's why I'm giving you this swap out, because you want to swap like for like, because you're like, most women will say to me, well, I want to make sure that I'm getting enough protein. Yes, you need enough protein for sure, but let's get our beautiful protein in a way that is anti-inflammatory. Okay, so meat isn't anti-inflammatory, right? That contains fiber. Meat doesn't contain fiber. That contains antioxidants. Meat doesn't contain antioxidants, and is also very, very low in saturated fat. That swap alone is going to make a really big difference for you with on your road to blasting your belly fat for good. Okay, swap number 2 is swapping out high caloric foods for low caloric foods. Now this might sound obvious to you, but I want to just unpack this for a second. So one of the things that we have to do when we're developing a dietary pattern rather than a sort of fad diet is you want to be able to eat enough foods that you're very, very satisfied. So my clients find that the volume of food that they eat goes up. They actually eat a lot of food. I eat a tremendous amount of food in terms of volume. And because I do that, like when I have, and you can watch some of my other videos where I make my big lunch bowl, or what I eat in a day, but you're going to see that it's a large volume of food. And with that volume of food, a lot of foods in that bowl or on that plate are foods that are calorically dilute. So it means that there's a lot of water in those foods. So what I want you to really think about is non-starchy veggies. And non-starchy veggies are because we eat our water, right? Are foods that are crunchy, anything really crunchy in the produce aisle, crunchy veggies, but lettuces and radishes and cucumbers and celery, those foods that have a lot of crunch, they've got those strong cell walls and need to be broken down, and when you do break them down, they're full of water. And when you're eating a large volume of that food, it also signals the stretch receptors in your stomach that you are full. And so I have a lot of my clients do something called front loading, which is that you'll have your beautiful non-starchy veggies or your green veggies first before your entree, and then you're so full of all these beautiful foods with all the enzymes and the nutrients, and they're calorically dilute, that then you probably won't want to eat quite so much of your slightly more calorically dense entree, whether that's your pasta or whatever else that might be. So as much as you can, think about that swap. Think about, okay, how can I swap out this particular food, whatever it is, whatever you're looking at, that is calorically dense. And obviously things that are calorically dense are going to be things like chips and crackers. There's a lot of calories in there, and yet you eat it, like you can eat a handful of chips and you're still starving. You're super hungry afterwards because it hasn't filled you up. It hasn't signaled your stretch receptors in your stomach as if there's nothing in your stomach. You're still hungry, you want to eat more, and then they're super addictive, and it goes on and on and on. And that's with crackers, and it's with chips. And generally think of dry foods as being calorically dense foods. So the second swap is to think of swapping out as many calorically dense foods with calorically dilute foods as you possibly can for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The third swap is to swap out your sodas, obviously your diet sodas and your sodas, and diet sodas can be very addictive, and they've got, even the artificial sweeteners. We now know that this impacts all of these artificial sweeteners, and even healthier sweeteners like stevia and things like this. We're now finding not only are they at least 600 times sweeter than sugar, so it just perpetuates that sort of sugar addiction and that craving for sugar, but all of them can affect your gut health and your microbiome. And we know that your microbiome, your gut health, plays such an important role in getting rid of that belly fat. So we really want to look at what we're drinking and swap out our drinks, swap out our beverages for beverages that can help blast that belly fat over time. So swap out for sparkling mineral water. It doesn't have to be sparkling, but I like sparkling mineral water because it's a little bit more sort of satisfying than just drinking water, particularly for a special occasion, for dinner. And then you can add some crushed herbs. I like putting mint in, some lemon, some cucumber. You could put not a great one for fruit juices because they can spike your blood sugar, but you could put a tiny splash of unsweetened cranberry or unsweetened tart cherry or something like that, just to give it a little bit more flavor. So that is a swap out that I recommend that you make right away. And then final swap out is swap out all refined sugar for dates or date syrup, because there's 100 different names for sugar, and some of the sugars that we hear about, there's this big health halo that's sort of, I call it the health halo. You've got to really look out for the health halo. Oh, coconut sugar is, I have some of them go, oh, it's only got coconut sugar in it, or it's agave, or it's maple syrup, or whatever it might be, or honey. But just know that all of the above and the 100 different names for sugar you play a part in spiking your blood sugar. And when your blood sugar spikes, then what sort of goes up, then you have that crash, and then you want more sugar, and it's harder for your liver to metabolize, and you store it as fat, and the list goes on and on. So obviously we don't want added sugar in our diet, and we really don't want any kind of sugar except for dates. So dates, and a lot of women are very scared of dried fruit because they've been told it's so high in sugar, but what we know to be true, and my clients eat a ton of dates, and my clients they banish their belly fat for good. Many of them, 8 to 10 to 17 inches off their waistlines, and all of that fat that they no longer want on their body. It's not weight loss, because again, it drives me crazy that women go, well, I tried this diet and, I lost some weight and whatnot, and then the weight comes back on again, because any diet you try, you're removing all the usual junky foods and suspects and everything. And so you're probably going to lose a little bit of weight. But what I'm talking about is long-term, a lifestyle, a dietary lifestyle that's sustainable, that improves over time. It's not like, oh, I've just got to grin and bear it and do this diet for a few short weeks. No. You're going to dial it in more and more and improve it because once you start this dietary pattern that I recommend, which is primarily a whole food, plant-based, minimally processed food diet. Doesn't have to be vegan. There's some wiggle room in there. That's how I work with my clients, but that is the sort of main focus. You are going to start feeling amazing. You're going to start feeling lighter. Your brain will be clearer. You're going to start releasing the weight. You're going to have the beautiful complex carbs that you've probably been avoiding for years, right? Such as fruits and dried fruits, such as dates and things like that actually give you energy, the energy that your body craves. It's your body's preferred source of fuel. So it's just a beautiful way of eating. So dates are wonderful. And I use dates literally every single day. So they go in my smoothie. I'll make all sorts of different recipes with them. In my community, my clients, we just use a lot of dates. I like medjool dates. They are the squishier, bigger dates. They're much sweeter than some of the other varieties like Deglet, and there are sort of smaller dates. So try and get medjool dates. Absolutely delicious, and it's a really great swap out for sugar. And if you're baking, you can use a little date syrup as well. So there's even date sugar. Just know that date syrup and date sugar particularly don't behave in the same way as sort of regular sugar or maple syrup even in a recipe, because it doesn't caramelize in the same way. So it's not a sort of equal swap, but to me, that's fine. I'd rather eat something that's sweet and delicious and does not, isn't going to be deleterious to my or your waistline, your weight, your belly fat release journey, or anything else. So those are 4 swaps that you can start doing right away. Number 1, swap out, replace saturated fat with protein that is very low in saturated fat and contains fiber and antioxidants. I promise you, if you do that, that's probably the most important change that you can make. Number 2, look for calorically dilute foods. One little note on that, which I forgot to say, is that foods that are very, very high in calories are often foods that are touted to have this health halo on a Mediterranean diet, such as olive oil and avocado oil. But it's a calorically dense food. You are better off having an olive or a little bit of avocado. Number 3, swap out your diet sodas or any kind of soda or sweetened iced tea or whatever it is with mineral water. Oh, and one thing I forgot to say on that is if you're buying real mineral water, as opposed to, there's a lot of these fake waters that are just, or when I say fake mineral waters, they're waters that they say is a mineral water, and it's not really, it's just reverse osmosis, put in a plastic bottle and sold as, mineral, healthy water. It's not. But will have the mineral content listed on the back of the bottle, okay? Because you're getting those lovely minerals in there. Why not in your gorgeous drink? And then number 3 is get rid of all of your refined sugars and added sugars. So read your labels on products. You don't want anything that's got an added sugar, and replace with dates. They're super, super healthy, full of fiber, full of minerals, full of all the goodness. And the good news is that it doesn't lead to weight gain, or even, diabetics that I work with, many diabetics, type 2 diabetics, can safely eat dates. So that's it from me in this video. And as always, if you want to find out more about what I do, I'll link underneath to a masterclass, free training that sort of covers more of my overall holistic approach to getting into the best shape of your life, mind, body, spirit, inside and out. So if you haven't seen that already, check it out, and I'll see you next time.